Did you know that essential oils can act as a strong and powerful ally to help not only with the symptoms of headaches, but also to help balance your whole biology as well as your psychology at the same time? I'm Dr. Sarah. Today, I want to continue on with the topic of headaches, but give it a little different twist or spin, if you like. I want to discuss how essential oils can help with the symptoms of headaches, but also address some of the underlying imbalances that could be the origin of why you might be experiencing consistent headaches. Now, this is important because many people, if not the majority of the population, have had at least one headache in their lifetime. But when you start getting headaches more and more often, it could be a signal that there's something deeper going on. It could be a food or environmental trigger, or even something else that could be a little more serious if it isn't taken into account and addressed. So the cool thing about essential oils is that they balance our biology, our physiology, and our psychology all at the same time. So I want to highlight one specific oil in each of these videos. I might do one, I might do two more, but I want to really hone in on the point of why I am so obsessed about essential oils and why I use them so often in my naturopathic and functional medicine clinic with all of my clients. Because they are not the sole answer to everything, but they certainly help bring many people back in balance and accompany any wellness protocol to its highest level. All right, so let's get started. Now, for those of you who do have my community membership, I will also be doing a follow-up video that will address some of the questions regarding this topic, as well as any other questions you have on wellness in general and essential oils. So stay tuned for that in your membership vault. All right, let's talk a little bit about why essential oils are so amazing for holistic health. There's this concept called synergy. Now, synergy is when the sum is greater than an isolated part. So a lot of times with medicine, what happens is that you get a specific compound, you isolate that compound, and you look for that specific isolated compound's impact on a specific function of the body. And a lot of times that's good, right? So we can understand how that certain thing works and what people's response to it will be. Unfortunately, we don't live in sterile, controlled clinical environments where we're getting the same thing every day and doing the same thing every day, and people are checking in and making sure we're taking something. Life is messy, right? And the cool thing about integrative products, right? If we look at things like herbs or supplements or nutrition in general or essential oils, there's varieties of different compounds in them. And they all are simultaneously kind of kissing these different receptors in our cells and acting on them in different ways all at the same time. So for example, one drop of essential oil has about 100 to 500 different molecules in them. Now that's for the majority of essential oils. So there are all these different actions, which is why when I say an essential oil does this and it does this and it does this and this and it does this, it's because it wasn't isolated down to its one component. Now, there could be a lot of studies on just one of those components that are found in essential oils, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But you have all of those things acting together with the harmonizing of our body of what it's used to in tiny amounts, right? That actually synergize with our biochemistry and our psychology with very, unknown amounts of side effects, minuscule if they're used properly and under the direction of either somebody that's versed in them or a practitioner that knows about them. They can provide rebalancing. So there was a number of different quotes I found on the concept of synergy. I put one in the accompanying article to this video, which I will provide a link in the video description. So you can go ahead and check out any of the references and resources I discuss in this video, as well as additional content I have if you like some of the things that I've been sharing in my videos. But basically, it's a concept that's kind of borrowed from physics, and it's the complexity of the living plant that has thousands of interacting chemicals give rise to this emergent behavior. And it's greater than the individual components of the systems. So simply, the whole herb is far better than are far greater, the response, than the sum of its constituents, and it's balancing. And we're still beginning to really understand how these interactions occur. Epigenetics, which is a new field about how our environment impacts our cellular expression, is starting to kind of help us understand this more. But stay tuned, because science is always evolving and we're always asking more questions to get more answers. And that's the exciting thing, especially about essential oils. I will never, every day there's a new study right out, or a new mechanism to look at. So if we look at the highlighted oil for this video, I wanted to focus in on peppermint. And the peppermint is a popular oil. It's easily accessible, I should say, and acceptable. It belongs to the mint family. Many people find the smell very pleasant aroma. It contains different constituents. Some of the main ones are carbachol, menthol, carnitine, menthol acetate, limonene, and menthone. Now, again, all of these different compounds can have different actions in the body. A lot of times, a good quality peppermint will have higher amounts of menthol and menthone. And these are what is thought to create some of the main effects of peppermint, specifically like that cooling sensation that you get that acts on different receptors. Now, the different compounds, when acting together, have said to have different effects in the body. These can be anti-inflammatory, analgesic, which is a fancy word for meaning pain relieving in medicine, anti-infectious, antimicrobial, and antiseptic, and antispasmodic, which is exactly what it sounds like, relieving spasms. It's an astringent, which constricts mucous membranes. So that can be good if you think about, you might want to inhale some peppermint if someone has a runny nose, or helping the body get rid of some of the, for lack of better term, snot, right? Digestive, it helps with stomach issues. It helps relieve gas, which is known as a carminative. It helps kill fungus. It's a nervine stimulant, and it's also a vasoconstrictor and decongestant. So some of the actions might appear like they're opposite, but again, remember, it's because we have these balancing effects of all the different compounds interplaying together. And if a receptor in a natural compound kind of see each other and the receptor's already full, it tends not to overpower it, like say an isolated compound at a high quantity would. So that's a little bit of a lay term explanation. As I said, more is getting revealed about the exact epigenetic actions of these different compounds in the plants. Now, because of all these different impacts, you can see that this can not only address the symptom of a headache if it was related to, say, a digestive issue, or say it was related to a microbial issue or an inflammatory issue, or something going on as far as with the blood vessels or the mucous membranes. It will impact, again, getting to the root origin and the symptom at the same time. Now, some of the other things that peppermint has been found to do in clinical studies is enhance memory and cognitive performance. And there was a pretty cool study I found where they actually assessed human cognitive and mood effects of spearmint and peppermint in 24 adults. So it was a smaller study, but what they did is they took the different peppermints and spearmints, and they found ones that had good quality menthol and menthone. And they looked at the interactions in Petri dishes to how these different components in the oils interacted with neurotransmitters in the brain. And when they found ones that really good quality oils that impacted certain compounds or certain neurotransmitters in the brain, specifically ones that acted on cholinergic. So we think about memory, calcium regulation, which is brain processing, right? Cellular processing, and interaction with GABA and nicotinic receptors. They took those oils and they tested them on the humans. So that was a two-part trial. And then what they did is they found that through various testings, that those who received the oil inhalation intervention had greater performance on cognitive tasks, and it attenuated mental fatigue associated with extended cognitive task performance. So there's different tasks that researchers do in the laboratory that assesses, keeping people in the lab for a long period of time and straining the heck out of their brain, right? So peppermint helped with that. To my fellow colleagues, probably remember the ones that went to school with me, I used to always carry my peppermint oil, and I would take it to class, and then I would also use it during tests, and then we'd pass it around. because the aroma would actually help bring back some of the memory. There's an association with memories and aroma, right? So that's another little hack for you students out there. Another study, there's been a lot of other studies on how peppermint also impacts memory, attention, exercise, and cognitive performance. I have a super cool article highlighted that goes through the biochemical pathways for any essential oil junkie science people out there, science junkies, I should say, who want to dive into the details of how they impact, say, your stress response or neuroinflammation. So there's some pretty cool resources there. But need to say, peppermint acts on the brain in pretty cool, profound ways and helps with memory. And it also has validation. It's probably one of the most popular integrative interventions as far as when we think about gut health, right? Irritable bowel symptom. A lot of people think of peppermint oil has meta-analysis of various studies that show that it has impact on people with IBS. Now, the gut-brain link comes into play here because there is a bidirectional relationship between IBS and psychological and psychiatric illnesses and diagnoses. In fact, there was one review I found that demonstrated changes in different regions of the brain. For those who are curious, the prefrontal cortex, the ventrolateral and posterior parietal cortex, and the thalami. These areas were actually impacted in those that had IBS, and those alterations in those specific brain circuits and were involved in attention, emotion, and pain modulation. So again, we're thinking about how peppermint can help with attention, emotion, and pain modulation. There was an article review of peppermint oil, and the author described how peppermint actually targeted headache pathophysiology in multiple ways. Unfortunately, it was in German, but the abstract did show that it did have comparable efficacy to two types of pain medications that can be used, specifically acetylsalicylic acid or paracetamol. So that's more used, I think, in Europe. But you can go ahead, and if you're German, there's a link to the abstract and full study. Go ahead and read it if you're interested. And then there was also a 2019 double-blinded parallel randomized control trial. So it hit all the marks in 120 adult patients with an actual verified diagnosis of a migraine, and they were treated either with intranasal lidocaine drops or peppermint essential oil at a 1.5% dilution. They also compared it to a placebo, and they waited 2 months. Symptoms were assessed after they used the intervention at 5 minutes, at 15 minutes, and at 30 minutes. If after 15 minutes the headache wasn't gone, they were allowed to take another dose, and then they assessed again at 30 minutes, regardless if it was 1 or 2 doses. The results indicated a 40% decrease in intensity of headaches in both treatment groups. And the authors concluded that nasal application of peppermint oil caused considerable reduction in intensity and frequency of headache and relieved a majority of patients' pain, similar to lidocaine. And it concluded the nasal method might be a good way to help relieve migraines. This is interesting, right? Because we know the sense of smell and how it hits the olfactory nerve and how that can impact emotions and mood and also brain processing, right? That's why I'm so big on essential oils. So there you have it. So in summary, one of my favorite aspects of essential oils is their ability to simultaneously address symptoms as they balance biological imbalances. Peppermint oil has clinical evidence not only for the relief of headaches directly, but also these indirect methods of also balancing some underlying physiology that could be some of the origin of why you might be having headache or some other symptom. So remember that peppermint has various actions such as antimicrobial, digestive aid, anti-inflammatory, a nervous system stimulant, and its ability to modulate brain and cognitive functioning. I literally do not leave home without my peppermint oil. It was one of my go-tos and what started me out with essential oils. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful, not just for headaches, but I really wanted to bring in kind of essential oils are one tool that obviously I'm obsessed with in my clinic, but also how natural melodies and modalities and methods work in clinical practice, why they sometimes might seem like they're slower to act because they're not jarring one biochemical pathway, but they're actually bringing the body back back in balance. And these can be subtle, but also powerful changes over time. If you like what you have heard, please go ahead and like my channel. It helps other people access this information to empower their health. Also, I do have additional resources and classes and a community membership program that you can check out. That will be in the video description. A lot of free resources as well for those who are interested in learning more and want to kind of dive and dip in and see how I approach naturopathic functional medicine and my love of essential oils. I will talk to you real soon. Take gentle care till then. Thanks for listening. Have a great rest of your day or evening.